I wonder have the Democrats ever told black people when slavery ended, it was the Democrats who wanted to keep black people enslaved.
Jim Crow was born. This character was created by white men to amuse a white audience.
Have the Democrats ever told black people that they made up the law that they now call racist?
It used to be a time where if you called someone a racist, they would want to retreat. But now it seems to be in vogue and all right to be a racist.
Nigga, your father would be ashamed of you saying some shit like that. Hard as he fought to get where we at.
Jim Crow would grow to symbolize one of the most tragic events in race relation history.
Well, right now it's the George Floyd trial.
It hurts black people and it hurts white people who care about black people.
I'm just gonna leave that alone right there. I'm not gonna even say some people just don't give a fuck. Next!
In 1865, 4 million Americans would become slaves simply because they were born black.
Now things have switched. Now you the descendant of a slave master if you was born white.
When freedom did come their way, it was replaced by laws designated to keep them oppressed.
And now the Democrats are making up laws to try to take away conservatives' freedom and keep them oppressed.
Oh, absolutely. There's no other reason. Why would you put something in place?
The Democrats know what they're doing. The Democrats are the creator of every slave law ever made.
This was the era known as Jim Crow.
And Joe Biden called this the Jim Eagle era. And the last time I checked, an eagle is bigger than a crow.
It was a form of racial discrimination.
And the Democrats say it still is. And if you don't agree, you're a racist.
Most of the African Americans stayed quiet while others fought back.
I wonder was the ones fighting back called coons too?
In the late 1880s and 90s, they started their own campaign to secure voting rights.
Which the only right you need to vote right now is proper ID.
Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
That sounds like something a libertarian would say.
Do you have ID normally? You carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No.
You need ID to buy cigarettes.
Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
Because they some racist son of a bitches, and they've been racist for a long time.
They built their own schools, businesses, and churches.
Now schools are closed, businesses is shut down, and you can't go to church for a funeral, a wedding, or to praise the Lord.
They fought to put a stop to mob violence and lynching.
Now black people are doing most of the violence and lynching.
Black Lives Matter! So they just started shooting at people.
White supremacists fought back, and the Ku Klux Klan came on the scene and were embraced by many.
And was sponsored, funded, and headed by the Democratic Party.
White supremacy was the power behind the Jim Crow laws, and it seemed unstoppable.
It was white supremacy then, it's cancel culture now.
The cruel treatment of African Americans continued.
And since cancel culture, the beginning of freedom of speech has began.
Fed up with the system, they decided to use the power of the press and the courts to pursue their quest for equality and freedom.
Now the Democrats are trying to use the power of the press and trying to extend the court to try to take conservative freedoms and rights away.
And these newly freed slaves knew what they wanted. They wanted to vote.
My grandmother wanted to shoot. My grandmother was beefing with Bloods. My grandmother was beefing with the KKK. I don't really think my grandmother really cared about any voting system.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Bitch, what? You saying black people don't have IDs?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because you need ID to open up a bank account or join a gym.
There were still some people who resisted change. So it created the 14th and 15th Amendments, which guaranteed African Americans a right to vote.
And speaking of membership, if you don't join the Democratic Party, they're going to try to take your membership. Just like the Jim Crow, or the Jim Eagle, I mean.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Because black people carry guns, not IDs.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so like, we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. Like, that's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, an ID.
And not a gun.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
We are more likely to have prison IDs. I mean, it's still state.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy canvas?
I know, right?
Yeah, it's called liberals most racist. Black people need to use their votes to vote the right people in that represent us. Like black people done back in the days.
They used their votes to elect black representatives, they sat on black juries, and they sent their children to school.
And now who's sending their kids to school? The same people that's telling you to keep your kids at home. When black people finally did get the right to vote, we voted for the right people.
In the decade of Reconstruction that followed, black Americans elected 22 black men to Congress.
And not one of them was a Democrat. But you know who was?
Nathan Beckford Forrest, a Confederate general, founded the Ku Klux Klan.
And the Democrats reversed that and founded Black Lives Matter.
The images in white hoods killing African Americans, but the light of burning crosses would forever be a memory never to be forgotten.
And that's exactly what Black Lives Matter and Antifa did last year in the Summer of Love.
The way white supremacists made sure that ex-slaves would fall back into place or nearly back into place was terror.
And now Black Lives Matter are terrorists because they don't like America.
Fuck the 4th of July, fuck the American flag. That's what we're saying. We're here for fascism. What does the American flag represent? America.
America, bitch.
You know what's the thing about y'all Chinese motherfuckers? Chinese! Me know Chinese mean Japanese! Don't make it Oh girl, don't be talking that little Japanese shit over here. This is America.
The place that gave you the right to that freedom of speech you have.
Beating people up, burning down their houses, shooting them, just the usual physical mayhem of personal violence.
If she would have added drug use and rape, she would have been describing the chop zone.
Southern states passed Jim Crow laws to ensure segregation of African Americans by race. As a result, black voting rights were suppressed through poll taxes, literacy tests, and the grandfather clause.
Well, if they went by the grandmother clause, I wouldn't be able to vote. Nigga, I would be in jail.
That still allowed illiterate white men to vote if their grandfathers had voted by 1867.
Well, nowadays, if you got an ID, you can vote. You don't have to be knocking on no governor's doors, asking them what he doing trespassing.
Here it is.
Why are they coming all close to her like that? Why are y'all getting all close?
So what you see right there, and what you're hearing, this is Georgia State Representative Park Cannon.
Why is the governor trying to sign something in private?
She is being arrested and removed from the state capitol after knocking on that door during Governor Brian Kemp's signing of that
The governor is signing a bill that affects all
assault really on your vote. What results to an assault on your vote.
Why? Did she have the right to be there?
Why are you arresting her?
That's what I'm asking.
Stop arresting her.
Why are you arresting
Why?
her?
Cite the violation. Cite the code.
Why? Are you her lawyer? Next!
How do you feel about that?
I really don't give a fuck. Next!
It's a sad day in America, quite frankly.
Yeah, because your father's dream is now turning into a nightmare.
Are you outraged? I know you have some sort of emotion around it. I know you're feeling something around it.
Let me see. Still nothing.
It's a travesty. It's tragic.
What's really disturbing is to know what Martin Luther King III think about black folks. Next!
And you should be passionate about it.
Not as passionate as you are about nuts in your mouth.
It's a sad day in Georgia and a sad day for America.
So are you saying your father's dream didn't come true?
Are you outraged?
Let me check again. Still nothing.
She was booked on felony obstruction charges.
What, was that supposed to change my mind?
That is apparently how far that they are willing to go to keep an elected representative from watching the governor sign a bill to take away the voting rights of many people in Georgia.
No, they're making sure that people who don't have voter rights don't get voter rights. Next!
You said we had a great election back in January, on January 5th. And of course, last year in November, there were no flaws or anything. So why would you restrict?
So dead people voting twice, and politicians changing the voting laws is flawless. Yeah, right.
This bill is about nothing less than taking away the right to vote. That is all it is, plain and simple.
Liberals think black people are incapable of doing things legally.
We're supposed to be expanding the right to vote to make it easier for more people to vote, not restricting the right to vote.
Yeah, expanding the voting rights of immigrants that will cancel out the American votes. Governor Kemp is doing the right thing in Georgia. Next!
Well, he's proud enough to sign a bill in front of cameras and what looks to be a room full of white men.
And since they're Republicans, they have to be white supremacists.
And I think voters, maybe this is going to backfire. The hope is that more and more people will vote because they've made it so much more difficult by what they've done, which should be unconstitutional.
So immigrants voting in an American election is constitutional.
And when you think about the fact we lead the nation and the world in promoting democracy, but we're blocking democracy at home.
But we're not blocking immigrants. The immigrant vote's going to be more powerful than the black vote.
President Joe Biden is passionate in his first press conference today about protecting the most sacred right we have as Americans, the right to vote, railing against voter suppression efforts, calling them sick and un-American.
That describes Joe Biden, not the filibuster.
What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. It's sick.
So is your fetish for smelling immigrant kid hair. Next!
You wrote about the filibuster in a new op-ed for CNN.com called "This is what my father would have done." So what would your father have done about this?
That nigga don't know he was a kid when his daddy was killed. That's like somebody asking my kids, what would I do? And not because my kids don't know what I do, it's because my kids don't know me. At least the ones that don't know I exist. They will be just guessing.
And in fact, I would say if my father had lived, we would probably be dealing with different issues, not the issues that we're dealing with right now.
He will be dealing with something he fought against, ignorance.
Look at the picture on your screen. Now, they were in there. Why weren't they arrested, huh?
Maybe they had their white privilege card. Black people don't have no privilege card. As a matter of fact, black people don't even have ID.
I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Because black people never registered a car before.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
Because most of us only got a check cashing ID to cash our welfare check.
These type of people don't live in areas with...
What type of people? We don't live where DMVs is at?
Or other places where they can get identification.
So I guess it should be a DMV in the projects in the next infrastructure bill.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
So I take it that your Google Maps work.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
If the government is not handing out stimulus checks, we can't afford it. And if our Google Maps don't work, we don't know where the library at.
I know it's at. It's on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is, Ranu?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
Do you know the bus route? Because according to liberals, you never had a car. Next!
It is funny. I hate to keep talking about it, but you have to. This is just out and out racist. That's all it is.
That's all everything is nowadays.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you know, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
And Don Dick Sucking Lamone said he's the voice for black people.
Judging somebody, like, but you judging them because they black, saying that they don't got it?
Well, that's what Don Dick Sucking Lamone said.
It is built on a lie that people of color in urban centers and big urban areas around the country, that they somehow did something fraudulent, that they stole an election.
Who in the hell said black people stole the damn election?
They have enacted into law legislation that was built on a lie about the election. And all of a sudden they want election integrity because people have concerns about the integrity of the election. Why do they have those concerns? Because you lied to them about it. That's why they have those concerns.
And liberals are really starting to tell the truth about what they think about black people. We should be concerned.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or like they're not informed.
The only thing a black liberal is informed of is what a white liberal tell them.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
The Democrats say they talking to us.
So what you're doing is a lie on top of a lie on top of another lie.
And you just told another lie about all them lies.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
Do you know the lies that's coming out of your dick-sucking mouth, Don Dick-sucking Lamone?
It is no different than Jim Crow. A poll tax with a different name and a different method.
And you are no different than RuPaul.
That's what it is.
And you are a homosexual. That's what you are.
This is the jelly beans in the jar of 2021. How many?
And for you, dildos in the bucket when you're bobbing for dicks.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid can figure out how to work the internet.
If a 6-year-old can get on TikTok, a grown 30-year-old should be able to get on the internet. Next!
You think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
Bitch, you trying to say I don't know how to download Pornhub? What liberals think about black people? Joe Biden say black people can't even get on the internet.
How to register. Not everybody in the community, the Hispanic and the African American community, particularly in rural areas that are distant and or inner city districts, know how to get online to determine how to get in line for that COVID vaccine.
You disrespectful motherfucker. Next!
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Liberals say that's impossible.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
Bitch, what?
Your phone has data? You can access the internet
Unlimited.
Unlimited data.
I use my phone as a hotspot.
And I use my phone to check my Cash App. And it just said Maisha Greenwood just donated. Maisha Greenwood, do you believe the stuff that's coming out of these liberals' mouth?
I also think there's a repression of like black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, like you're not allowed to vote and everything. And
wait for it.
When you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the like African Americans.
So half the niggas in Florida is felons. Bitch, you are racist.
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, "Can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are"? Are you
Love showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
Because you need ID to buy an iPhone.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, "Can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are"? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you had to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
And it wouldn't be racist either.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
You cool with that?
Yeah.
It looked like he smoked weed and you need an ID to go to a medical weed dispensary.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant of.
That's what my thought process was.
The most racist man in the world is a white liberal.
I just think that's ignorant.
Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the word
Very,
I'm hearing
very
a lot.
ignorant.
Ignorant.
Very, very ignorant.
And very, very liberal. And to all my black people, we gotta let the liberals know we know how to get on the internet and do stuff. So let's do a test run. Just go on the internet and subscribe to my Patreon for $5. Let's teach these liberals a lesson. They think we dumb. Go, it's only $5. You get 2 live comedy shows next month. I'm funny as hell, baby mama jokes, and some grandma jokes, and the rest of it. And you know I'm gonna get the liberals. $5. Let's do a test run. Let's prove these liberals wrong. We can get on the internet. And good looking out to my MAGA, Yang Soon Han Lin. Did I say that right?